Welcome back to Insider Ecom Edge, the show that helps you stay ahead of the curve in e-commerce. Today we're going to do a deep dive into something that's not just a fad, but a complete game changer: eco-friendly business practices.
You got it. It's not just about being green anymore. It's about really connecting your business with the values of this new generation of shoppers who are demanding sustainability.
I've definitely noticed more talk about this lately, but is it really that big a deal, or is it just a small but loud group?
Oh, it's definitely gone mainstream. Just think about this. 81% of shoppers prefer brands that are committed to sustainability. And get this, since the pandemic, 66% say it's become even more important.
Wow, okay, so we're talking about a real shift in values, but let's get practical for a second. What does this mean for the bottom line? Is it just good PR, or can going green actually help a business financially?
It's both, actually. Eco-conscious practices can really cut costs through more efficient operations. Plus, you can see a big boost in customer loyalty and, yep, even higher profits.
Yeah.
It's not a compromise.
Yeah.
It's about doing good and doing well at the same time.
All right, you've convinced me. But where do we even start? E-commerce has so many different parts.
Well, let's start with the foundation of your business. The products themselves. The stuff you sell really says a lot about what your brand stands for. Like, imagine you're selling clothes made from organic cotton. That choice alone tells a story about your commitment to sustainability.
Right. It's about actually doing, not just saying you do it, but how can you make sure customers see those efforts? Are certifications actually important to shoppers?
Certifications like Fairtrade, USDA, Organic, and Cradle to Cradle are super powerful because they offer that independent verification. They're like a seal of approval that customers trust. Think about it. If you're looking at two similar products, wouldn't you probably go for the one with a recognized certification?
For sure. It builds trust and transparency. And speaking of transparency, are there any companies out there really setting the bar high?
Allbirds is a great example. They use sustainable materials like eucalyptus fiber and merino wool for their shoes. But they go even further and actually show the carbon footprint of each product right there on their website.
Wow, that's impressive. It's like they're saying, hey, we're not perfect, but this is what we're doing and we're holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
That must really connect with customers.
It does. And that kind of radical transparency is becoming more and more important. It's not enough to just say you're sustainable. You got to prove it with real actions and data.
Okay, so the product itself is the base. What about the first thing a customer sees when they get their order? I'm talking about packaging.
Packaging is so important. It's the face of your brand, but it's an area where e-commerce unfortunately has a bad reputation for waste. The good news is it's also where we're seeing a lot of cool innovation.
I've seen some brands getting rid of boxes entirely, going for that naked packaging look.
Yeah.
Is that realistic for everyone?
It could be, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. The big thing is the overall strategy. Are you cutting down on waste by using the right size boxes and skipping unnecessary filler? Are you using materials that can be recycled or biodegrade?
Right, like those compostable mailers you see now. Those seem like a good swap for the usual plastic packaging.
Exactly. And don't forget about refillable options. Companies like Loop are leading the way with this, creating a system where packaging is sent back, cleaned, and reused.
That's a total game changer. It totally changes how we think about packaging.
Totally. And when you do implement these eco-friendly packaging choices, make sure to talk about it. Promote it on your website and social media.
There's that transparency again. Customers want to know you're really making an effort.
They do. It's not just about the materials, though. It's about the whole life of that packaging. Are you reducing waste in your own operations? Are you teaching customers how to properly dispose of or recycle it?
Makes sense. It's a complete approach. Okay, so we've covered the products and the packaging, but what about the part we don't see, the supply chain? I feel like there's a lot of potential impact there.
You're right. The supply chain is a huge opportunity. It can seem overwhelming, but a good place to start is with a life cycle analysis of your products.
So taking a step back and looking at the whole journey from raw materials to the customer's doorstep.
Exactly. That analysis helps you find areas to improve. Maybe you'll discover one of your suppliers isn't using sustainable practices, or there's a more eco-friendly option for a certain material.
It's about being proactive and taking responsibility for the whole process, not just your little part of it.
That's it. And choosing the right partners is critical. Look for suppliers who are committed to ethical, labor, renewable energy sources and managing resources sustainably.
So making sure your values match up with your supplier's values. But how can you tell if a supplier is truly walking the walk? Are there any tools for that?
Technology is a big help here. Blockchain, for example, is changing how we look at supply chain transparency.
I hear a lot about blockchain, but I'm not totally clear on how it works or how it relates to sustainability.
Imagine a digital record that tracks every single step in the supply chain from where the raw materials come from to the final delivery. That's basically what blockchain does. It creates a permanent, unchangeable record that anyone can see.
So it's like a chain of custody for each product, making sure it's been made and transported ethically and sustainably.
Exactly. And that level of transparency can really build trust with customers.
Do you have any examples of companies using blockchain like that?
Everlane is a great one. They've integrated blockchain into their supply chain to give customers incredible insight into where their purchases come from. You can trace the origin of the cotton in your t-shirt, see the factories where it was made, and even track its journey across the ocean.
That's taking transparency to a whole new level. It eliminates the guesswork when you're trying to shop ethically and lets customers make informed decisions.
It does. And it's a growing trend. As consumers demand more accountability, blockchain is becoming a crucial tool for brands that really want to show they're serious about sustainability.
This deep dive has been really amazing so far. We've covered so much from sustainable products and packaging to the hidden world of supply chain management. But there's one big piece we still need to talk about: shipping.
You're right. Shipping is often the elephant in the room when we're talking about sustainable e-commerce. It's a major source of carbon emissions, but it's also an area where there's tons of potential for innovation.
This is where things get really exciting.
Ah,
Let's jump into the world of sustainable shipping and figure out how e-commerce businesses can minimize their impact without sacrificing speed or efficiency.
let's do it. Let's explore some of the most effective strategies that are changing how we ship.
So we know shipping has a big impact when it comes to how eco-friendly e-commerce is. What are some real things businesses can do to make their shipping less harmful to the environment? I'm guessing it's not as easy as just putting a Go Green sticker on a box.
Yeah, you're right. It's more complicated than that. One of the best things to do is use carbon neutral shipping programs. You've probably seen those options when you're checking out online, things like UPS Carbon Neutral or DHL Go Green.
Yeah, I have. But honestly, I usually just click those without really knowing what they mean. Is it really that simple, or is there something more going on?
There's actually a lot behind those little check boxes. Basically, these programs figure out how much carbon is released when your package is shipped, and then they offset those emissions by investing in projects that either use renewable energy or reduce carbon in other ways.
Oh, so it's kind of like balancing things out. For all the carbon released during shipping,
Yeah.
they're putting money into something that removes or prevents the same amount of carbon somewhere else.
You got it. It's a way for businesses to take responsibility for the emissions from their shipping and contribute to a cleaner planet.
That makes sense. But what about the actual delivery routes themselves? Are there ways to make those routes more efficient and eco-friendly?
Absolutely. That's where route optimization software comes in. These programs use really complex algorithms to map out the most efficient routes for deliveries, which means less fuel is used and emissions are reduced.
So instead of a delivery truck driving all over the place, it takes the most direct route to each customer's house.
Exactly. And it's not just about saving fuel and reducing emissions, it also means faster deliveries and happier customers.
So everyone wins. Are there any other smart logistics strategies that can help?
Another good one is combining shipments that are going to the same area. Instead of sending a bunch of individual packages to the same neighborhood, you group them together and send them all out at once.
That seems like a simple but effective change. I can see how that would really cut down on the number of trips, which saves fuel and lowers emissions.
It's all about getting the most out of each delivery trip and not driving around empty.
Are there any companies that are really doing amazing things when it comes to sustainable shipping? I'd love to hear what the leaders are doing.
Amazon's a good example. They've set a goal to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2040, and they're putting a lot of money into sustainable shipping.
I've heard about those electric delivery vans they're testing. Are those actually being used on the roads now?
Yeah, they are. They've already got thousands of them in cities around the world, and they're adding more all the time. And it's not just the vehicles themselves, they're also changing how their whole logistics network works to make the total distance traveled shorter.
That's great to hear that a huge company like Amazon is making these changes. It sets a good example for everyone else.
It does, and it shows that sustainability isn't just for small companies. It's something that businesses of all sizes can and should do.
All right, so we've talked about making the products greener, the packaging more sustainable, the supply chain more responsible, and even the shipping more eco-friendly. But let's be real here. All these efforts might not get noticed if businesses don't talk about them. What about the importance of storytelling in all of this?
You're so right. Just doing these things quietly isn't enough. You have to share your story. Be open about what you're doing and connect with customers on an emotional level.
People want to support brands that they feel good about,
Yeah,
and that means knowing that the brand's values match their own.
exactly. That's where storytelling comes in. You need to go beyond just corporate talk and share real stories about how your company is becoming more sustainable.
Give us some examples of how brands can do that well. What are some storytelling tactics that really grab people?
One great way is to share behind the scenes content on social media. Let your customers see how your products are made, how you're cutting down on waste, or how you're working with ethical suppliers.
I love seeing those kinds of posts. It's so much more interesting than just a photo of a product. It gives you a feel for the people and the passion behind the brand.
It's a really good way to make your brand more relatable and connect with customers on a personal level.
What are some other storytelling strategies that work well? What kind of content really gets people's attention?
Being transparent about your goals and the challenges you face is important. Don't be afraid to say that you're not perfect, but that you're always trying to improve.
So it's about being honest and showing that you're on a journey, not pretending to have already reached the finish line.
Exactly. Customers like authenticity and will connect with brands that are open about their progress and the bumps they hit along the way.
Are there other ways to make your sustainability story come to life and really stick with people?
Having a dedicated page on your website where you explain everything you're doing is a great way to give people all the information they want. You can showcase your certifications, highlight your sustainable practices, and even share what customers are saying.
So it's like a sustainability hub where customers can really dive in and learn about your commitment to doing things the right way.
Exactly. And for brands that are all in on transparency, you can even break down the costs of your supply chain and the environmental impact of each product you sell.
Wow, that's serious transparency. But I can see how that would build a ton of trust with customers who are serious about making ethical choices.
It shows you're not hiding anything and that you're truly committed to doing things right.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of storytelling, but there's the potential downside here too, right? What about greenwashing? How can businesses make sure their message about sustainability is real and doesn't sound misleading or fake?
That's a crucial point. Greenwashing is a real problem, and it can really backfire if customers feel like they're being tricked. The key is to be specific with what you're saying and avoid vague or unsupported claims.
So instead of just saying eco-friendly, you'd give specific details about the materials or processes used.
Exactly. Back up what you're saying with data certifications and clear explanations of how you're making a difference, and be honest about the areas where you're still working to get better.
It's about owning up to what you haven't perfected yet and showing that you're constantly trying to improve.
You got it. Customers appreciate honesty, and they know no company is perfect.
Do you have any examples of companies that are doing a good job of being open about their sustainability efforts, even in areas where they're still working to improve?
The outdoor brand REI is a great example. They put out a yearly sustainability report where they talk about their progress, including the areas where they didn't quite meet their goals.
That's a really authentic way to do it. It shows they're serious about constantly getting better and they're not afraid to be honest about the challenges they're facing.
And it helps build trust with customers who appreciate that kind of honesty and openness.
As we've seen in this deep dive, sustainability isn't just a passing trend. It's a fundamental change in how businesses need to operate. It's about making decisions that are good for the planet, good for people, and ultimately good for your profits.
It's a win-win-win all around. And the best part is you don't have to do everything all at once. Start with something that feels right for you and your brand and go from there.
That's a great takeaway for our listeners. Start small, but start now.
Absolutely. Every step you take, even a small one, makes a difference. And remember, this isn't about just checking boxes or following the latest trend. It's about building brands that people love, brands that last, and brands that have a positive impact on the world.
Well said. This has been an amazing deep dive. I've learned a ton, and I'm feeling inspired to make some changes in my own business. How about you? What's the biggest thing you're taking away from this conversation?
For me, it's the reminder that sustainability is a journey. It's not a destination. It's about always learning, changing, and trying to do better. And it's about realizing that we're all in this together. Working together and sharing knowledge are crucial for creating a more sustainable future.
I love that perspective. It's not about being perfect, it's about making progress. And it's about realizing that even small steps can add up to a big difference when we all work together.
Welcome back to Insider Ecom Edge. We've been talking about how e-commerce businesses can not only keep up, but really thrive in this new world where customers care about making responsible choices. It's been pretty amazing, hasn't it? We've gone from talking about sustainable products and packaging all the way to how important transparency and storytelling are.
It's obvious now that sustainability isn't just a little thing anymore. It's a must-have for any business. But for those listening who might be feeling a little overwhelmed, what's the main takeaway? Where's a good place to start?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that sustainability isn't just good for the planet, it's also good for business. When you make choices that reflect what you and your customers believe in, everyone benefits.
It's about finding that balance between doing good and doing good business. But how do you actually get there? We've covered so much. Are there any easy first steps that businesses can take?
Definitely. You don't have to change everything overnight. Start with one area that feels right for you and your brand. Maybe it's using recycled packaging or signing up for a carbon neutral shipping program or even just adding one product line that's sustainable.
It's about taking action even if it seems small at first.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to try things out. Experiment with different ideas, see what works for your business and your customers, and be open to learning and adapting as you go.
That's a good point. There's no magic formula that works for everyone. It's about finding what's authentic for your brand and what you stand for.
Absolutely. And as you're making these changes, don't keep quiet about it. Tell the world. Be transparent about what you're doing. Share your story and get your customers excited about the journey.
Being real is what matters. Customers are smart. They can tell when a company's just pretending to be eco-friendly.
Yeah.
But when they see a brand that's truly committed to making a difference, they'll become loyal and passionate supporters.
That's right. And remember, you're not alone in this. There are a ton of resources out there to help businesses become more sustainable.
Where can people find those resources? Are there any organizations or platforms that you recommend?
Industry groups are a great place to start. They often have programs focused on sustainability best practices and even mentoring. And there's a whole world of online resources from blogs to certification organizations.
And don't forget about connecting with other businesses that are already doing great things in this area.
Working together is so important. Sharing knowledge, best practices, and even the challenges you face can help everyone move forward faster.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's clear that the future of e-commerce is all about sustainability, and I'm really excited to be a part of this movement. What about you? What's your final thought for our listeners as they start their own journey towards sustainability?
My last thought is this. Don't underestimate the power you have to make a difference. Every choice you make, every action you take has an impact. And when we all work together to do business better, we can create a world that's more sustainable and fair for everyone.
That's a great way to put it. And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of Insider Ecom Edge. Thanks for joining us as we explored eco-friendly practices in e-commerce.
We hope this has been helpful and inspiring.
Remember, the future is in our hands. Let's make it a sustainable one.